Hey Ross the Wars, welcome again. We're now on to episode 3. We're sort of firing them out. Hopefully, this becomes your household podcast through the off season. Once again, yeah, it's Nathan. We got Mike from the London Legion and Ross from the Lafayette Unicorns. Just sort of quickly summarizing last episode, we spoke about the trades that happened this sort of last week and a bit, and how they're sort of affecting those teams and fantasy, who it affects fantasy wise. This episode, we're going to touch on some of the big contract extensions and some of the franchise tags that have also been heard for sort of this off season 2022, or at least pre-season 2022. Okay, well, let's fire away. We'll try keep it as brief as possible because this guy talks about himself enough, and we know Aaron Rodgers takes up way too much time in the thread and everything on Ross the Wars. So let's keep it limited. But Aaron Rodgers, he signed a 4-year contract, $200 million. Okay, so now Mike Williams. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we've mentioned him. Let's move on from Rodgers straight away. It's fine.
But yeah, look, yeah. So yeah, what the biggest contract in NFL history, Ross? What was your? Were you surprised? Put it this way.
I don't think I was surprised that he's re-signed. I think there's been a lot of to and fro, and I think last year was more in jeopardy of not being a Green Bay Packer. But all the signs towards the end of the season, even though it ended like terribly, were that he was going to re-sign. So I wasn't surprised. I was surprised that it was so early as well. I thought he'd maybe drag it out for a bit more PR, a little bit longer. But yeah, so I wasn't surprised. Glad it's hopefully over. Hopefully we're done talking about Aaron Rodgers for a while, but I'm sure he'll make that not happen.
Yeah, no, we'll see. Like he's a larger than life guy. Look, none of us will ever deny his NFL talent, but when it comes to him as an individual, I think he does raise a few question marks on sort of his antics recently. Mike, yeah, were you ever hoping that he would be the guy that ended up at the Broncos, or did you think that was actually tangible, or retiring? Were you expecting him to resign? Where were you?
I was hoping he'd retire actually, but in all fairness, I think he's very good at self-publicising. He's very good at improving his self-worth. He made it very clear to the Packers last year he wants things done, or have input in having things done his way. I think he had to make the move contract-wise to free up enough space for the rest of the band to come back together with him, Adams and others as well. So as much as it's a massive contract, it's not front loaded. It seems like he's carved enough space out to keep some of his guys with him this year. My initial reaction was, that's loads of money. That's going to completely screw them for ages now. They're going to really struggle because he wants his last big payday. But the way it's stacked out, it looks like he's trying to win something again. It's not just lining his own pockets. So I think it's interesting. Yeah, I'd like to see him go to the Broncos or the Colts or
just out
Washington.
Just out of the NFC North.
Anywhere from the NFC, just go, please, bye. But yeah, I think it makes sense for Packers to keep their franchise quarterback. What it does to Love going forwards with has a third year sat watching. Yeah. I guess we see he may be one that's on the move to Indianapolis or somewhere.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see. But I think it's big money. But Mahomes he reset the market a couple of years back. But it keeps growing every year. He's there to make money as much as he is to win stuff, right? So I think it's probably a good move for both sides of the coin, just not the rest of the NFC.
Yeah, my understanding behind sort of the financials is he's on what, sort of a 4-year, over $200 million a year, with $153 million guaranteed. That's my understanding.
Yeah,
and prior to the contract extension, his salary cap hit for 2022 season was originally meant to be about 46 million. That was my understanding. But because of this trade now, it's loaded. So that's where they sort of obviously talk about sort of the how it's positively affected the Packers in terms of their flexibility now. And obviously them going and tagging Davante Adams, which we'll come on to a little bit later when we talk about the tags. But clearly it's the right thing to do for Rodgers. It's in the bigger picture, it's a no-brainer. It's familiar. He's on a team that has come so close twice now, and do we think though that this is a common theme of him sort of missing it at the last hurdle? Do we think it's a bit of being slightly unlucky? Do we think it's sort of a mental frame of mind? What do we think Rodgers can win the second ring? Ross, do you think he can win the second ring?
Yeah, I think so. He's been outstanding the last 2 years, obviously back-to-back MVPs. And I get what you're saying with falling at the last hurdle. Is it him, or is it the Packers, or is it just the unlucky? But I think the NFL, the margins are so fine. All it takes is one little thing to change, and they're there, and they're in the Super Bowl. If they had better special teams, for example, then that game against the 49ers, they could very well go all the way. So I think that was, like you said, that's his best shot, is to stay in Green Bay and try and go for it. Because imagine going to the Broncos, who obviously had his former coach there. That's starting afresh, and it's maybe not with the same cast and crew. So I think his best shot is in Green Bay, and I think he can do it. And they've proven to be one of the best teams in the NFC, at least in the regular season.
But do you not think that still, look, it's a no-brainer from his point of view, but do you not think this deal amplifies the pressure that is on him to win the second ring? Because if the Packers come out now, and if the Packers don't pretty much, if they're not in the top 1, 2, 3 seeds in the NFC, I would argue it's a disappointing season. If they don't get to at least the championship game, it's probably a disappointing season. I know you're saying the fine lines here, but there surely needs to be a stage here where what is good enough for this franchise, and yes, they're making the money work, which at the end of the day is the be all and end all, is how you manage and how you navigate the salary cap is really how competitive your franchise is going to be. But having signed this 4-year sort of commitment to someone like Rodgers with 153 million guaranteed, he has to bring you a second ring. If he doesn't, it's I don't know. Is it something that they look back on and regret, or is it just something to keep the fans sort of happy and drinking beer in the stands? I don't know. Maybe we should get Nick or one of the other guys on to tell us their opinion of this contract extension. But Mike, do you think the pressure is added onto him, and do you think he can deal with that pressure now, Rodgers, or do you think there's a bit of a breaking point coming?
I think when you play at Green Bay, there's pressure. Full stop. They've got if you're playing at a side like the Packers, where the town's named after, it's called Title Town, right? They haven't delivered for ages. There's always pressure. It doesn't matter who's under center for them. I think Rodgers gives them the best chance to go and do it again. As Ross said, it's a supporting cast as well, right? It's a guys around you, as well as a quarterback has to lead you and drag you forwards. This is where the Patriots got it so right for so long. Brady wasn't just taking loads of cash; he was making sure it was all nicely spread about. He had the players around him. But like the Bucks recently, it's about building the franchise and building that whole 53-man unit. I think it's a good deal for both of them. I think he gives them the best chance to win it again. He's shown the last 2 seasons he's the best quarterback, best player, MVP 2 years running. He will win you games where that last Hail Mary pass that he seems to pull out of nowhere to jump balls in the end zone. With the right cast and crew around him, he does give you the best chance of winning it, rather than resetting and bringing in Love. That's a 2-3 year project, right?
Yeah.
Only one team can win every year. Last year was the Bengals. So I don't think it amplifies it. I think it shows Green Bay's commitment to try and win it again, rather than resetting. We mentioned Russell Wilson before. What will they see? Trade away their franchise. Let Pete Carroll have another 5-year run at rebuilding the side, or do you go all in again? So it's interesting. I think it'd be a lot to be seen, but I do think he gives them the best chance of winning.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Unfortunately,
and then sort of lastly, before sort of you move on to some of these other contract extensions, Ross, with how safe is Matt LaFleur's job in this, in terms of if we go through another season here where where we lose at the last sort of hurdle. Is there now a question being asked that Rodgers is tied in to the franchise for the next 3 years? Do they look to upgrade at head coach, or do we think Matt LaFleur will outlast Rodgers in Green Bay?
I think he's a very good coach, and you can see that the number of regular season games they've won in the last 3 years. And I know what you're saying about it sort of feels almost like Super Bowl or bust. But I think if you're looking to build a franchise past Rodgers, then I think Matt LaFleur needs to be part of it, and he will be. I don't have any doubts about that. And I think if you're what Rodgers wants, Rodgers gets. And he seems to have a really good relationship with Matt LaFleur as well. So I don't think that should be questions at all, basically just because of a couple of fine margin playoff losses.
Yeah. And makes sense. Well, look, before I sort of go into the contract extensions, I think it's easiest just to address the franchise tag here with the Packers, just to keep it sort of keep it organized. Davante Adams, again, I think we don't want to repeat the last 10 minutes, but it was a no-brainer for the franchise. Do you think there was ever a stage that Davante should have considered a long-term deal if he knew that Rodgers was getting a long-term deal? Or do you think that he would have just been the loser out of this? Davante Adams, he can earn his money. He can sort of he should have got paid this year, and look, he gets his franchise tag, he gets his money. But do you think this is genuinely Davante Adams' last dance with this team? Mike, what do you think is going through Davante Adams' mind?
I think he wants to win a ring. So going elsewhere, you've got to move to another franchise that's the opportunity. You're going to go. So free agency, he's the cost. He will be one of the most expensive wide receivers on the market.
Yeah,
he's shown years. So the tag's worth just over 20 million. I think you're happy staying playing for the tag for the year. Obviously, you'd probably like to get a longer contract with $156 million guaranteed for him. That'd be quite nice. But yeah, I think these you win a Super Bowl, your value goes up anyway. So I'm sure he'd happily play a season, win a Super Bowl, and take $23 million next year, or whatever that figure becomes.
Yeah.
So I also think his relationship with Rodgers is very important to him as well. Wide receiver, quarterback, it takes time to build. So why walk away if Rodgers is staying? You're happy. You'd rather be with the guy than not. So for me, I think he's happy to be there. I'm sure they're working on a longer term contract. Question of how much more space they can free up, which I'm sure we're reading the daily reports. They're looking at remodeling contracts and stuff all the time. So, there's a last dance there or a first dance there to try and win his first Super Bowl. But
no, exactly.
The Packers want to win, so they want the best players they can get in their franchise. So it makes sense for them to keep him as well, keep the team together.
I had quite an interesting conversation earlier this or a couple of days ago with a mate of mine that also sort of follows the NFL, and he seems to think that the Packers are going to gradually start following the way the Saints have dealt with the salary cap by signing these guys onto big contracts and sort of keep just kicking the bucket down the road, where it gets to the next year, they're 50 million over, they just restructure, here's your sign-on bonus, we'll lower your sort of cap hit, and it rolls on and rolls off until they've finally been paid out all their big money. Do you think something similar could be forming in Green Bay, Ross?
Yeah, it definitely seems that way, because they were obviously massively over. I think it was them and the Saints that were massively over the cap to start a month or so ago, and they've restructured their way into being cap compliant. But when you look at the Rodgers deal that we mentioned earlier, the 200 million, but the cap hits lower in the first year. So somewhere along the line, it's going to hit them like massively, so that they've even got to again restructure again, do some funny things with voided contract years. But it looks like that's going to be the way forward. And in that situation, that's just another thing, like you're saying about Super Bowl or bust. It needs to be Super Bowl or bust, because once you lose that quarterback, like the Saints lost Drew Brees, then it's the dark ages again, where you don't have enough money to sign a quarterback. And it just becomes everything just becomes more difficult.
No, yeah. I agree. Let's not get too much into that. Yeah, that's a whole different podcast. We can talk about Mickey Magic. Yeah. So sort of. I think to summarize sort of the Green Bay moves there. I think it wasn't surprising, as you say. I think everyone was expecting something like this to happen. I think obviously every sort of beat writes, and everyone wanted the big trade. Everyone wanted the Rodgers at Broncos. Little did they know, and we covered it in the last episode, it was the Wilson story, really, not the Rodgers story. But anyway, I'm
pretty sure that's why you signed the contract anyway, just to take the wind out of Wilson's sails.
Yeah, just to wind them up. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, look, let's look at some other guys that got paid to a certain extent. Mike Williams, I think he's Tyler's favorite player, isn't he? I think Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler does love Mike Williams.
Put his flag down, and he'll be a Warlock. Is he still currently a Warlock? Sorry,
he's still currently a Warlock. I've not seen any trades in the last half an hour or so I'm sure he still was, but that can change. That can change any moment with Tyler.
Well, I'm sure he's worth a fair penny, and I'm sure Tyler will let us know. So Mike Williams, yeah, straight away reactions. Ross, was this the right thing for the Chargers?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's a good player. As much stick as he gets for having not performed for a number of years into his contract, into his career, I think he is a good player, and he showed that last season. And people say he's a one-season wonder, and he's playing it in a contract year, but he was really good. And he's different from Keenan Allen, so he's a different type of receiver for Herbert to throw to. And what he did, he was excellent at. So just jumping up, winning those contested balls, scoring touchdowns, and you can see the relationship he's built with Justin Herbert already. And you can't change that. Like, what are they going to do? Not sign him and then go and get someone in free agency or sign a rookie? Like, it was, for me again, it was another no-brainer. Sign him to the franchise tag, try get him tied down for a longer contract, and they've done that.
Yeah, no, I agree the same. I think, look, he's also considerably younger than Keenan Allen. Look, we won't take away from how elite Keenan Allen has been for fantasy reasons the last 5 years. Even under the Philip Rivers era, Keenan Allen was his favorite sort of target. I think it was definitely the right move to do for what the Chargers are trying to do, and sort of dovetailing back to the early episode with Khalil Mack. They're really trying to keep up pace with the AFC West. I think the AFC West is just with the rookie quarterback performing that well, you want to try and get to a position where you're winning on that rookie quarterback contract with Justin Herbert. And by all means, his talent, he's capable enough to do that. So you have to surround him with these sort of players on defense, on offense, that are going to give him the best chance to succeed. And it's difficult because that team is almost inevitably not going to be the AFC West first seed. They're fighting for the wild card and to try get through to the playoffs through sort of the back door, which will always be difficult. But Mike Williams is efficient and he's a big contributor in that offense. Mike, yeah, do you have anything to sort of add to Williams?
My initial reaction was, well, that's a lot of money for a guy who's done one good season in the last few. But second year with Herbert, the relationship's developed. Are we now seeing the real Mike Williams? Has Herbert brought the best of him out of him? I think, relatively wise, he's younger than Allen. He stretches the field a bit more than Allen, I think, in different ways as well. He's not as, they're very different types of wide receivers, which I think, all these sides need the slant runners, the deep ball, the jump ball. They need all the options there. I think Herbert trusts him. He showed even no matter how much you want to play in a contract year, if your QB doesn't trust you, you're not going to see the ball anyway. So regardless of how well you want to play in your contract year, if you're not seeing the ball, makes a difference. So I think it's short, really 3-year contract. It's good money for him. It is an arms race in that division. They are all trying to load up as much as they can. And like I said, it makes sense with your rookie QB or your third-year QB on a rookie contract. Make as much moves as you can now, because in 3 years' time you've got to pay the guy. He goes from $9 million a season to $50 million a season, whatever, when your contract comes out. So you've got to make the most of it while you can. So I think it's a good move for the Chargers. And with additional moves on the defensive side, if they can stop the run attack coming on their defense, they might be pushing for that top seed in that division.
Yeah, it's really going to be a wrestle between them and the Broncos. Now, obviously, each having to play each other twice, just competing for those wild card positions, I think. And I think, look, this is us just assuming that the Chiefs are going to keep on the Chiefs train and just be dominant. But look, who knows? We might see a case where we see all three of them qualifying for the wild card, which could well be the case. I think that happened this year with the NFC West. I think you had the Cardinals, you had the Rams, and the 49ers. So it's not impossible. It's a bit like what's a chapter 8 in the PP, where you had all four of them flipping making the playoffs. But I think the reality here is that it's the right thing to do in order to just keep up pace with that league. They are not in a rebuild because they've already found their franchise quarterback. And they are incredibly lucky to be in a position where their franchise quarterback is on his rookie contract. So they have to put the pieces around him to be as competitive as possible now. And I think the aging Keenan Allen, it's the right thing to do, just for sustainability and to keep the franchise growing really and being competitive. Staying on the offensive side of the ball, let's talk quickly about the franchise tag on Chris Godwin, one of the other wide receivers who's getting paid for another year. Mike, do you think there are obviously big rumors of Godwin looking for a long-term contract or a long-term sort of payday here, but they didn't come to an agreement. Do you think that sours anything there? Also, they don't even have a quarterback. What's Godwin's situation here?
I think he's incredibly unlucky to be injured. That's the biggest thing about it. He's coming off a serious injury. I mean, most of these guys come back fit now, but do you commit a multi-year $100 million contract to a wide receiver who may come back at half the speed he was at before his injury? It's a difficult one. Obviously the Bucs need to find a quarterback, a tight end, a running back. So they've also got to look at the salary cap as well. So go back to it. You push it down the year 1 year. You got to pay him $20 million. I think it's this season for his tag. It's 1 year. Push it down. You're not committing for next year after. Yeah. If they let's say they sign Jimmy G, that's only like a 1 year, 2 year plan. So why give? You got. I think it's the balancing act of how far forward they're planning for.
Yeah.
He's shown he's a top 10 wide receiver last couple of seasons. He is thankfully on my roster in roster wars, so I'm quite happy with him. So I think they should pay him and give him the ball all the time. Get rid of Mike Evans and just feed Godwin. But that's fine. I don't know. I think it makes sense from both sides, really, because I'm sure Godwin wants more value out of it. Needs to show his fitness. The Bucs don't want to pay you too much because you might not come back at the same speed. I think that makes sense from both parties to do that for me. It wasn't a surprise to see him sign the tag, or see him give him the tag. Hasn't signed it yet, I don't think. But
Ross, do you share that sort of view as well on Godwin?
Yeah, as far as Godwin, obviously super talented. A bit unfortunate that he got injured, and I think that's maybe where the contract talks have broken down, because Godwin's obviously saying, like, I'm a great player, and they're saying, well, you've been injured, so we're not going to give you all this money. But for me, the big is the knock-on effects of the Bucs. So Carlton Davis is another top free agent for them. And because he couldn't get anything done with Godwin, that means he couldn't franchise tag Davis. I don't know if they wanted to do that or not, but it looks like Carlton Davis is going to hit free agency and they're going to lose him. So it has a big knock-on effect on the rest of the roster.
Yeah, I personally thought it was quite interesting that they decided to tag Godwin over someone like, as you say, Carlton Davis or someone else on the defensive side. I think their defense is what carried them the year they won that Super Bowl, on top of the fact that they had the greatest quarterback of all time. But that defense really helped them to be competitive. And I think the Bucs are in look, I'm quite biased. I'm obviously relatively anti-Bucks, but I think that they're in quite a dangerous position here because, as Mike said, they're losing a lot of players. They're tagging individuals that maybe they shouldn't tag. They're struggling to keep this team together, and they've lost the greatest quarterback of all time. So you've got a team that's not really there in any position, really. You've got Godwin and Mike Evans, awesome, like two awesome receivers. But now who's going to throw to them? Blaine Gabbert? Do you want Kyle Trask? Like, are you going to go draft a rookie? Are you going to trade? They have been linked with Deshaun Watson. That wouldn't surprise me. They might go and say, screw it, let's try win again. But it's I think being a Bucks fan it's going to be a very tumultuous 12 months, and it's going to be interesting to see who sort of comes and goes and how well they draft, really. But I think the days of Tom Brady is long gone. Anyway, so let's sort of try and get through the offensive side of the ball here and sort of skim through the three tight ends that got tagged. So we had Dalton Schultz, we had David Njoku, and we had Mike Gesicki. Ross, just going through those. What do you think it was the right year to tag a tight end, or what's your feeling on those three tags?
Yeah, well, I think I heard someone say that the tight end tag was so cheap that it was almost they had to do it. And I think as far as Dallas goes, like I think Dalton Schultz was probably the pick of the bunch there in terms of production and talent. Really broke out this season, when I think at the start of the year it was maybe neck and neck between him and Blake Jarwin from a fantasy perspective anyway. And he obviously just blew him out the water.
I think, I'm just going to nip it. I think Blake Jarwin just got cut as well today.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
I was really hoping that Schultz would hit free agency and the Jets could sign him, but obviously not. And as far as, I think Gesicki, they did the right thing. He's a weapon that they need for Tua, whether he's a tight end or receiver or whatever he is. But I was quite surprised about David Njoku. I don't think he's impressed at all. And I know it takes time for tight ends to break out, but it was really surprising that they tagged him. They've got a couple other options. They've got Hooper at tight end as well.
Yeah.
And so Njoku's the second tight end and you're tagging him. I don't know, it's a strange decision.
My understanding of that, and I might be very wrong, it's just obviously something I sort of read, was that they tagging Njoku to keep Njoku to have the flexibility of trading or even potentially cutting Hooper, because I think Hooper's on quite considerable money, and as you say, they've got two they've got two relatively productive blocking tight ends, right? But on the offensive side, I think they don't offer as much as you would have hoped. They've now just taken in Amari Cooper. I think the Browns do need to sort of assess what they're going to do with Hooper, if because they've gone and obviously shown Njoku the faith. But I agree. I think it was a bit of a confusing tag, or out of all the tags that were made, it was probably the most that everyone was quite surprised about. Mike, do you have much to say on the tight ends?
Schultz makes a lot of sense. I think Cooper moving on as well. You're keeping a very productive tight end there. And Njoku, I kind of did, my eyebrows did go up when I read about the tag, but it is cheap. It's $11 million, I think, this year for the tag for a tight end. So
yeah, I think it's like 10.8 or 10.9. Yeah, so 11.
So if you can keep Hooper and Njoku, that gives you more firepower. But then you've then just signed Amari Cooper as well. So there's obviously some to do there, but I guess they'll probably try and trade Hooper away, get some picks or something back for him in return. Gesicki, I think, is a very, very productive tight end in Miami. I read somewhere that someone was suggesting he might do 1 year, then get traded across to the Chiefs.
I think that's what Corbin's hoping for.
That's where I read it. Sorry, yes. But it got me thinking. If some of these guys are, you can pocket them away for a year on $11 million and possibly extend on a nice contract. Perhaps you're keeping your pieces for another year to trade and make some picks back.
He is. Look, I think Gesicki is very Kelsey-esque. Just obviously. Maybe I just think a 2.0. I think he's a good offensive weapon. Ross, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, he's a good offensive weapon, but that's it. Like, he can't block. Kelsey does so much more. I think Corbyn's been eating some mushrooms or something like that. Like, to think that he could replace him. He's obviously he's a massive step down. And Kelsey could do things that Mike Gesicki can't even dream of. Mike Gesicki is just a big wide receiver.
Yeah, he's a modern day tight end that's basically up for jump balls in the end zone. Really, that's his prowess now. But yeah, I think it works well. The way Miami have been playing, obviously new head coach this year. Maybe the system changes, but with the way that.
That's another thing. I think Mike McDaniel he did very well with Kettle. So I think this is a very good year to be quite strong on Gesicki in terms of your views. I think he's going to have a very productive year. It's all going to come down to whether or not Tua can now unlock that. But you've got Waddle there as well. Look, I'm not sure about Devontae Parker's situation, whether he's a free agent or not. There are a few weapons there. I think they need to address running back, the Dolphins. I think they either need to go trade for someone. Someone even mentioned, I read it from the side, that Leonard Fournette to me would be a great fit for the Dolphins. I think if you throw Leonard Fournette into that team, he's had a few good years. I think they can pay him. And I think you're starting to see a bit more of an exciting Dolphins team to put pressure on the Patriots and to put pressure on the Jets in that AFC East, because look, the Bills are very, very strong, but the other three teams, it could go either way. We've seen what Mac Jones can deliver, but I think the Jets and the Dolphins really need to step up and be more competitive going into 2022. But yeah, look, guys, I think it's been another sort of great episode. I think we're getting through them very quickly. It's crazy to think how quickly the time flies when we're talking. We need I think between us invest in a proper sort of recording setup that gets us on for hours, and then we can really chew everyone's ears off. But yeah, again, thanks guys for making you're making the time to be available to have a little chat. And I'm sure there'll be a few comments to come after this video drops, and we can get involved in the posts on that side. But yeah, keep well, have a good week again, and I'm sure we'll go ahead with episode 4 in the near future.
Looking forward to it.
Hope everyone had a good one. But yeah, thanks again, Roscoe. Cheers, Mike. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. See you later.
See ya.
Cheers.